Good. Maybe I'll see you on the Cape.
Okay, thanks. Here you are.
Well, I hope she hasn't lost us now.
Today. Okay, so we're back, and now we're going to do the larger painting after we had done these two little studies here just to refresh your memory. We're back, and we're going to do the same painting based off of my color sketch or what have you. But what I'm doing right now is I'm taking my little bit of vine charcoal, and I'm really, once again, just massing in. I'm not going to put these details, but what I'm looking for, as you should with all landscape paintings, are what are called the planes or angles of light. Right? So when you see things going this way, that's the ground plane. The ocean is the same. It's either flat or vertical. Now, the waves, these waves that are sort of sweeping, they're somewhat vertical because it's almost like a wall of water. So right here, I'm seeing this sort of, vertical plane. Then it comes down to here. And what happens? It's flat again. So it's flat, somewhat vertical. And those, you really want to look for those things in the landscape. This is somewhat flat, but I'm just looking for that because that's going to affect my values, my colors, all of those things, because whatever's receiving light from the flat plane is going to be somewhat lighter than whatever's vertical, right? So that's just something to think about. It's the same with the rocks, the same thing with the rocks. With my pencil, I'm also dividing big shapes. Right there is where the light breaks, right? Now, it may not be perfect, but shadow, light. You want to think about that. Shadow, shadow, shadow.
Oh dear. I lost you, Ellie.
Oh no, what happened?
Oh, there you are.
Okay, good. All right. So
Hello.
again, I'm leaving. I'm not going to mute anyone at this point. I'll just keep everyone on. But if I start feeling a lot of static in the background, I'll do that again. This rock's kind of bugging me because it's almost like this is nice, right? And it pinches in, but this one's like a little confusing. It's like taking a turn, and I don't know if I like it. I might take it right out or give myself a little jump and then just have another smaller one in a
Yeah.
coming in that way. That makes a little more sense. If I'm confused looking at it or painting it, the viewer's going to be confused. So again, I'm trying to simplify and give the viewer what I might do. I'll tell you what I might do is take it out. So we've got this sort of pinching over that way. Maybe there's one that's just sort of pointing in. I don't know. We'll figure it out, but that's a possibility too. I don't like that either. We'll see. But it's kind of like this is behind whatever this rock is in front. So maybe there's a rock going this way. Okay, we'll try that. I don't know, let it just crop off. Okay, so now we're going to get back into the painting part, back with my big brush. One of the things I didn't talk about today, I always talk about it, but it's the dividing your palette into zones. And so a lot of times when I'm mixing a color, I'll do light, medium, dark, right? So I have those three values and I try to mix them where they belong. So we'll see how that works out. I might need to use this space for mixing my dark. So maybe light, medium, but just try to be aware of that. Also that my palette is a 5, a mid-range value. Same with those gray paper palettes. Those are great too. All right, so again, we're coming back in. We're going to, I'm going to just grab this because I kind of want to get rid of it down here. The sky has to be up in this range, right? Has to be. Taking a little medium. That might be too light, but I don't know. Here's the thing. When I put it on here, I'm guessing the value, but when it's here, I'm not guessing. I know it's lighter than a 5. And that's kind of what I want the sky to be. I want it to be up into the upper range, upper third of the value range, more or less. Let me just grab that value scale. Here we go. So, if I'm keeping the sky and everything in the light up in this range, this is my half tone, and then everything in shadow is down in here. That's what I'm thinking. So you can see how this value and my board are the same. So I don't have to guess. I tell myself, mix a number 2 for the sky. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now. So I'm just putting this down, grabbing a little more. Now, don't forget, this was pre-mixed, but watch how easily I can mix it with ultramarine blue and white. I mean, it's not that hard. It's just that it was pre-mixed and I'm trying to get rid of it. So let's put this up here. Over here, it does get a little darker. So maybe I'll grab a little more of that blue, right? Or some of this blue, just to show you what happens. The sky sometimes can be a bit of a gradation, like it might be a little darker over here than it is there. These big flat brushes are great for blocking in, just because, first of all, they're sort of geometric. So they're really good for nice, clean type of lines. Let's see, that wave is up here. So I'm bringing the sky. This is going to be my wave right there, right? And this is sort of a halftone, whatever, but that wave is doing something like that. There we go. All right, nice straight horizon. I pulled my horizon down a little bit because it seemed a little skimpy for me. I thought, let's give a little more space to that sky. Okay, nice and clean. So that makes sense. There's that. Next, I'm going to shift into a nice gradation of the ocean, which is from dark, very dark up here. There's a nice contrast, right, between the two. And then it comes back down into those lighter values that are similar to the sky value, but a different color family. So again, shifting into the turquoise. So let's take some phthalo blue, and I'm going to put it right in the middle because it's a halftone. I also see a little purple mixture in that. So I grabbed some of the King's blue. I could have grabbed the, that's too much. I could have grabbed a bit of the Quinn rose. That'll do the same thing, to a certain degree. Okay, so nice and juicy paint. Again, VHS. I'm looking for a value that's a 5 or a little bit below 5 maybe. So let's put that right in like that. Again, I'm just looking for big shapes. That might be a little bit dark, so I'm going to lighten it up slightly here. Add some green. I think it needs some of the Viridian too. I just feel like it's a little too saturated. Okay, that's better. But that's a nice flat plane. Do you see that? That's very flat right there. It's flat here too, but it lightens up a bit. Notice my brush strokes are going this way because I'm trying to illustrate to you how flat this all is here. Then all of a sudden it starts to go, and I'm going to add a little yellow to this. I should have more paint. Let's see, there we go. Let's make sure you use enough paint when you're painting in oils. Not tons at the beginning, but enough to push around later. Now I'm seeing these are getting darker and coming down. This one here is a nice sort of like that. I just want to remind myself that that's what's happening here. That is going that way. Okay, same here, pull it down. Like this, okay. Now this is switching into something different. It's really more of the turquoise and a little yellow because the sunlight, the sky is starting to filter through to the water. Let's grab a little more of this. There you go. And this, so I'm coming back up again because right in here, you see that? That's very different than what's happening in these two areas. I'm going to go even a little bit lighter there. Again, grabbing some more medium, and here I'm going to pull it this way, and this gets darker up in here again. But again, I'm trying to just put down big areas of light, of paint, like puzzle pieces, more or less. Then without paint, and a lot of times you can paint the smaller parts on top of the big. So I'm not putting all these little white things. I'm not even going to put that white wave in there yet. I just want to shift, just have big shapes of the right value as though they were cut out of paper, right? That's what I'm looking for, as though they were cut out of colored paper. I just came back down the value scale from this. I'm down here now, right? Where am I going with that? Probably more ultramarine blue, maybe a little green. Let's just see. That might be too dark. Okay. Right in here. I'm just going to come back in with this darker blue right here. Comes right up like this, comes over. There's some rocks. The thing is to paint beyond the details. This is the block-in stage. We don't want to be painting all the little bits that are in there. That will go on top later. I'm trying to separate just where I see very obvious light or color shifts or value shifts. That's what I'm doing right now. This is kind of nice right here with this big brush. I'm going to come back in here. Now I'll put that in right here. Why not? And put it down and leave it alone. That's another thing with what we call alla prima, all at once, Italian word for all at once, and leave it alone. It goes down, and if it's good and it's right, just leave it alone. That's the freshness of it. All right, so that's pretty dark in there. Now I'm going to shift into, here's a little tip. Take all of this. This is what's on my brush. Scrape it off, and look at that. I got a little bit more paint. I might as well get all one.
Hopefully I will be on short.
Yeah.
Well, I've lost you.
I've lost you.
What happened?
You disappeared.
Somebody disappeared. Okay, got to readmit. Here we go. Thanks for letting me know. Perfect.
Ellie, mine is very blurred as well.
So is mine.
They're blurry. It's blurry? Huh.
Yes.
Well, you're not going to get a crystal clear image with zoom. That's
You do anything now, it's a lost day now for
Yeah.
this, but
right.
we have to figure it out. I don't know. Just need to
Shouldn't be very blurred though. It might be a little bit of, it could be that there's a bit of glare on that. Is that it? Maybe? That's better.
I don't know. You've gone again.
Okay, hold on. Let's pause the video because we are having it. Come on. Recording? Yes. Didn't let me know though. Okay. All right, so hopefully we're recording right now. Yes. I'm going to now start painting in my darker accents and shadows. So I'm feeling violet, but of course this is very saturated, right? I want to pull it more a little bit in line with an earthier violet tone. So I'm just going to dull it down with some of the, I'm mixing the violet. I'm going to pull it down the value scale with a little bit of that transparent oxide red, and that's also going to neutralize it because it's kind of an orangey red. So right in here, nice big shapes. Again, I'm holding on to this big dark brush because see how neutralized that is? It's almost a dark purplish gray, but I really like it. So I'm just going to put all that right in there and maybe just use it to draw the edge. That's going to be lighter, obviously, but I just want to remember where it is. Okay, so that's up in there. I think this is leaning a little more greenish, so let's grab some of this green, come up the scale. See, it's the same value, purple versus green. It's the same value, it just went into more of a greenish family. I might go a little lighter too with it. And maybe make it a little browner, we'll see. But basically this shape here is all shadow. All shadow like that. And maybe even a little darker. Let's go a little darker on the base here. Okay, so that's dark. This is shadow here. And does get a little bit lighter green as it goes this way. So I'm just laying that in. And right now, these shapes are just sort of, somewhat accurate, but not perfect yet. Think about the planes of light, things going this way versus that way. So I'm thinking about that, Here's that little problematic rock again. So we'll see. We'll see how we do with that. Maybe just have it come up and over and have some water sort of sloshing over it. That'll be good. Okay, so that's good. Next step is I'm going to wash this brush now because it has that really dark muddy green on it. So let's get rid of that. And I think I can just pull this turquoise color with a little warmth in it. Just pull it right up in here like this, right up against the rock, and I'll put my white on top. Because like I said, that's fine. I could easily deposit it right on top. Gets a little lighter and warmer right in here. I see this, look at that. So I'm just trying to use this big brush, block in very, almost abstractly, really, where I see things like that. Where else do I see this? It's here. When I have it on my brush, I try to look to see where else can I put it down. This is darker. So when I have to go darker, I go down the scale again, right in here. This is definitely darker here. Okay, so I think that's a good start. I'll hang on to this brush for some other big shapes that I need to make. Let's go in with our shadows on, not the shadows, the light side of the rocks. Now I'm going to start working my way down. I'm leaving the white till last. Oh, here comes someone. There we go. Welcome back. Let's leave the white waves till last. I tend to try to stay in the middle values when I'm blocking in, and then I push some accents or darker shadows, and then I start to build from there, always going from, mid-range or dark up to lights. And then my last brush stroke is always the whites, the nice juicy sort of white. Maybe what we could do next, let's start hitting the areas in the sunlight. I'm going to start here. Again, what is the value? It's an orangey color. That transparent red is awesome because it's the less saturated red than that. So it gives me a nice orangey tone. Sometimes when I'm making a color lighter and it's in the sun, I want to add a little bit of white, but not too much. I want to keep adding the sunlight in because I want to make sure it's really going to pop and be nice and warm, right? So here we go. Here we go. I'm squinting. I'm just going to make one. That might be too light. Let's go back down a little bit to this more orangey tone here. Grabbing it, and I'm just laying it down right now, just in big sort of clumps. Again, if it's too saturated, add a little blue sky, and it will dull it down. That blue into the orange, it's gonna dull it down. I'm gonna push a little bit of red into this because I think I see more orange here, especially as it comes over here like this. So there we go. So that's the light and shadow of this rock formation back there, which is nice because that warm tone is going to really, look at that. Wow, let's push some more of that. I like it. Again, warming it up. What if I take just the transparent red in some places? That's kind of nice too. And push that right in. But, I'm really trying to just separate the two, light and shadow. Where is the light catching on these rocks? That's what I'm looking for. There we go. Like this. I can go back in later, but right now I'm just trying to break it up into some sort of a feeling of light and shadow. You have to know, where does it break? Where does it break from light and shadow before you add the details? Okay, so that's good. That's a good value for here as well. And I'm just going to go with the same color here because I'll probably be picking up some of this green as I go and I start to draw this in. And you can see it's picking up some of that green. So that's good. That's what I wanted to do. So now I'm just sort of making this into a different direction. You see the light is hitting this side, but not here. It's hitting the top of the rock. Okay, that looks good. There's a bit here. Of course, we were talking about what to do with this. I'm just going to make it go this way, I think, and crop it off. We'll make some water sort of pool over that. So while I have this lighter brush that has a warm color, let's mix up that sand color again. How did we get it? We started with white because it's in the light. It's the light value. I'll grab some of this. All right, so basically this was just orange, remember? It was just my orange. I think that's pretty good, but then again, I always feel as though it should have a little bit of pink to it or something. I'm going to grab a little more of the medium. See how I twist my brush and pick it up? That's what I'm looking for. That looks good. I think that looks pretty good in terms of the sand in sunlight. And let's lay it down. Now I can put my shadows on top. In fact, that is a shadow right there. Isn't that funny? The tone and value and color of my toned board is actually a nice grayish violet. I like that. So I'm going to leave that as a reminder. But over in here, it's getting a little warmer. And then here, and then we can sort of soften that edge a bit there. It's also over here. I want to just warm that up a bit. There we go. Again, adding the blue will make it seem more believable in terms of sand, because it's sand and blue sky mixing together. So that's what makes it more of a putty color. I'm going to play around with this edge. I do like that sharp edge right there. So we'll play around with that. That's a beautiful gray down violet. I'm going to hold that just like it is right now. Okay, so onward, we're still building the, hold on, let me lighten this up a bit here. Still building, we're blocking in again, still the big shapes, pretty much. Okay, now I'm going to take probably the same brush. I don't want to get too small, because when you're massing in big splashy areas of water, it's to put it down first and then address the edge. So I'm going back in and just grabbing this white that has a little bit of the turquoise in it, and I'm squinting down to see the big shape. It's very hard edged here. Of course, the edge at the top is not. We'll get to that. But right now, I'm looking for laying that big white shape down. This is perfect. This color's great. Where else? It's kind of over here. And that's great. Okay, so that is where I'm laying these down. Go right up in here. And then as it leaves the brush, I can start to play around with this edge. Or maybe I'll switch the type of brush I'm using. Something a little more feathery. I don't know. We'll see. But basically, when I'm laying down these lightest of lights, these waves that are crashing in, I want to put down a nice, thick, juicy brush stroke like this. Back into just pure white. Pull it up. Leave it alone for now. I'll go back in and figure out what to do with the edges. But right now, I'm building it as though it were just like a posterized cut out of paper, trying to just get these big shapes down. I love painting these surf paintings because they're so lively. There's so much movement. That might require a thinner brush. Here, maybe grab a little bit and push some right in here. Any place that I see that frothy sort of water. But again, I'm trying to just keep things big and simple. Remember, this is like loosening up and not painting all these details. Where else? Maybe a bit over here. That got dirty. So let's come back here. I'm grabbing a whole loaded brush full of it. You see that? Now here, I'm feeling how it sort of drags down, right? The crest, there might be a bit at the top of that wave right here, but then it sort of starts to cascade down like that. So here's another tip that was in my notes. If you hold your brush at the very end, let's let this person in. If you hold your brush at the end, you will lose control of it. And that's a good thing for this sort of loosening up. Look at that. I'm just twirling it and pulling it down through the paint. And it's creating, here's another way. It's just creating nice, simple, like shapes that not so defined. You know what I mean? That's good because you're trying to create some movement in this water. So you can see I'm just holding it like this, right? Any place else? Here's a good way to emphasize the flatness of the plane on the surface of the water where you have things swirling like this, see? There's another one back here, but it's really more turquoise. It's not quite as white. So I'm just grabbing a little bit of that turquoise paint and pulling it straight across to emphasize that horizontal aspect of it. One of the things too about the horizon, we always talk about this, you kind of want to soften it into the sky. You don't want to have a hard edge there. So just soften that down a little bit. All right, let me go back in and just emphasize it here. But make sure it's soft because you don't really want the eye to go too much to the horizon. That's good. All right, I'm feeling good about this. If I was limited for time and I had to walk away from this canvas, this is not a bad place to stop. Because I know I have all the major puzzle pieces up there. And now really the only thing left to do is come back in and start working on details. So I'm going to pause just for a minute. It should say recording in progress. It says recording. Okay. I didn't hear usually there's an announcement. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to start moving into, maybe I'll do the same. I'll work from top down and really start to, tweak a lot of these little details. I'm taking a smaller brush, this little one here. And what I'm doing is I'm sort of taking some of this paint that's here and rolling up and losing that edge. So there's a lot of different ways to lose an edge. In this case, I do want to see paint being deposited away from the main mass. So I'm picking up the paint and I'm sort of pulling it through. Let it just sort of get blurry, to be honest. I'm trying to just blur what's happening here. So with the bit that's on my brush, let a little bit of that sky shine through. But I'm really trying to just soften this down, and I can go back in with the white later and the clean, really clean white if I want to pick some of that up and put it back, deposit it again. And sometimes a dry brush technique works. Like I might start out here and deposit it and pull it back. It's really experimental to a degree. It's like trying to just figure out what is the form of this wave, I feel as though the lightest part is right along the horizon. I'm not the horizon, right along the edge of the rock. I'm going to grab a lot more of that white paint and just really come right in there nice and clean because some of it did get dirty. But I think it's just, there's one part of it that's very light. Wiping my brush because my brush is a little bit dirty too. Going right back into the pure white right here, let's see. And really just depositing that. So even with a wave, something that's moving and liquid as it is, oh gosh, okay. Well, even with a wave, it does have form. So, the light's coming this way. So I definitely want to make sure that I'm showing the lighter part here using the pure white. And then as it moves into shadow, it gets a little more in the violet family. So let's go here and try to paint in some of that shadow underneath. I'm going to make a bigger jump too, because I want to make it a bit more apparent. As I put this violet down, it sort of blends in with the sky too. So it's kind of hard to tell where the wave ends and the sky begins, but if I want to emphasize the edge again, I would go back into the white and I would lay it down really nice, just lay it down and leave it alone. Put a nice big pile of it right there. So now I'm getting some contrast between where the sky is, but this is all sort of sea spray. It's almost like I need to come down the value. I'm just gonna mute everyone. There we go. If you can just mute yourself, that'll be great. But here, so I'm just looking, where can I soften and where can I go back in and restate? Once again, cleaning my brush, grabbing some more of the white here, pure white, and just really depositing that right along. I want this edge to be harder. Now that's not bad. That looks okay. Any place that I really want to push it, I'm just going to put that paint right back down and try to just leave it alone. The other thing you can do, if you've gone too far and softened everything in, is go back in with the blue sky and just paint back in. Maybe my contrast is too close and I need to emphasize a darker value here in order to emphasize that wave. I think it's a little more turquoise here. Yeah, a little bit more of the turquoise. So that also, you can go back in and push the sky back in. Now see how we have contrast again, which is good. I think my sky might be a little too light right here, so I'm going to darken it down again. So yeah, it's a little bit of a back and forth modeling back in, like here, for instance, maybe go a little darker here because I lost it, And also I may have lost the shape of the wave too. We'll have to see. So it's a back and forth. I'm painting in and out of it. There we go. Okay. Over here, that actually is down, isn't it? This is all sky. Let's just lose all that. Take a bigger brush and lose it. Right here. Let's see. Which isn't that important. I mean, it's okay. I don't have to be a slave to the photo either, but I do think That is more sea spray here and sky here. Okay, beautiful. That looks good. All right, so now I'm going to come down into this area where the wave is crashing against these rocks in here like this. I'm having a hard time depositing this paint, but it is in here. Maybe like that. There we go. And then there's a bigger one. This is sort of sea spray right all up in here. There we go. And another one here, right up against the rock. So it makes sense because where it's coming against the rock, it's going to push up. So you're going to have that going on. Okay. My rock, I think we could do some darker things. I'm going to take my palette knife and go into transparent red with a little bit of sap green, or the Viridian green rather. It makes a nice dark. And depending on how much of the transparent red versus green, it could be a cooler brown or a warmer brown. This is warmer because it has more of that. So I want to just go in now and start to maybe poke in some of these darker. Let me grab a little of the sky here too, though, just to pull the value up a bit. Now I can come in and just sort of poke in some of these a little bit lighter, I think, here. I don't want them to jump out too much. Let's try this. There we go. With the palette knife, I'm trying to just maybe pop in a couple of these darker shapes right in here. Let's see, because if I use the brush, I'm not going to get the texture I'm looking for. That's good. Maybe skim it along the edge just to hold the edge a bit. And this is where you'll get that texture of some of these little craggy, shadowy areas that are popping in there. So I'm just going to do that. There we go. And I can always go back in, like I said, again, and restate. And here's an edge that I think could warm up a little along the shadow line here, like that. Down in here, I think I want to go darker. So the palette knife will definitely get you to loosen things up. If I don't like it at all, I can just go back over it again. The beauty of the palette knife is you just wipe it off. So I can mix a warmer orange again, come back up the value scale with it. Right here, like that. And I can go on top now. And that might be the way to go, is to paint the whole thing first. Just look at that. I like that. So paint the whole thing and then just sort of go back in again with this warm, sunny, gets kind of lighter right there, doesn't it? And then it might skip over and catch a little edge there. But anyway, so that's palette knife work on the rocks, which works very well. I think I'm going to stick with my palette knife for a little while too, only because my white paint started to get, it wouldn't sit on top. It started to pick up what was underneath. So again, it's nice to just grab some really clean white paint and lay it right down. There you go. That's what I was trying to do with the brush. But a lot of times with the brush, you're removing paint as opposed to applying it. So this way, I'm putting it right down where I need it, nice and thick. And I can move it around again later if I wanted to, but palette knife is great for this type of thing. Of course, you can pick up and make it dirty too. You have to be careful. So right now I'm just thinking about looseness, edges. Where can I pop in a nice crisp shape where I need to, like that. Let's bring this down. See, and it even picks up a little bit of the color that was there. So I like that. Because it sort of unifies. It makes the water seem a little more transparent right there. Here's a little drag here. We can put something there. So I'm just working this area. In the shadow, we might see some slightly lighter areas of that are just slightly warmer. So let me come down in here to this brownish. It's almost the color of my board, and I can put some in here. Now it's almost the same value, but it's a bit warmer. So it adds some depth to those deep shadows right there. It adds some interest in that okay, some of those rocks might be catching a little more light, so therefore they're warming up a bit. That kind of works right there. I think this could be a prettier purple. Let's see. I'm going to go in with something like this. And that's one of the things I ask myself too. If a color is a little too dull and too gray, you can go back in and just make it a little more in the color family itself. So I just want to see a little more of that violet in there. That's kind of reflected light, that's kind of bouncing in from the sky. Okay, here I'm going to go darker right in here. I just want to make sure that's darker. Okay, so now moving down, let's see, we're going to go, let's work here. Well, I did say I'd move downward, right? So this is confusing, isn't it? So let's go back in and restate some of the color there. And I want to go back in the phthalo, but warm it up a bit. And so I'm going to pull that right back over and down. Again, darker here. There we go. So squinting, I'm going to go darker right here. A little more yellow. So where I'm feeling it's getting warmer, I just keep adding some more yellow in. I feel that's pretty good there. Okay, any place else? There might be some shadows in the wave. Right there. Definitely lighter here. Okay, grabbing some more white, a little more yellow. So I'm just lightening up some of these areas in here. Like that. Okay, that feels better. I'm going to come back over with that and then put the wave back on top. I just think I went a little bit too far with bringing the white out. I don't want it to come out quite that far. So now I'm just going to go back in with my clean white and put a little wave here and restate this here. So you can't really make a mistake because you can just go back over, scrape it off or go back over, whatever you have to do. Of course that wouldn't go that way, would it? It would go more this way. All right. Here I'm going to scrape and sort of just pick up what's there and try to create sort of a softer edge, like it's almost disappearing into the sky. Then you might have one or two that are a little bit stronger. It's a technique. It's kind of a back and forth that you have to do. Okay, let's move on. Coming down, working on, let's see, I think I can go one more jump on some of these rocks. So I'm going to come up a little bit higher, one more. A lot of times I don't even care what the color is. I just want to go lighter. Now that's not bad. It's almost like it's picking up some of the sky. Well, we'll figure that out. I think that's fine. Okay, so now I'm going to work on these because right now they're just sort of blobs of color. And now we have to get into, again, putting some interest and some detail. So that sandy color here can kind of wash up in here, right? And as I'm using my palette knife, I'm creating some nice loose edges right here. Let me grab some white. I feel like the water could sort of come down right between the two. So I'm doing that. I see some light back in here. And by making that lighter, this looks darker. So that's a little splash of a wave back there. Let's see what else. Again, pulling these whites through the composition really helps to lead the eye where I want it to go and emphasize some areas. This probably needs to be a lot lighter. Yeah, let's do that right now. Let's grab a lighter turquoise right here. Yeah, definitely. So again, coming up with this, loving the palette knife, I'll tell you. It really creates some nice edges. Here, this part here, even lighter. Let's grab some more white right here. It's this turquoise color, but lighter. And look at that. We can just sort of isolate that area with the palette knife so that, I don't overblend. That feels better. Get the movement and the direction that things are going also, so that's good. And if I get a little too thick, I can scrape it down and, add it in again. There is such a thing as maybe being a little too thick. But I'm trying to just push the paint around with this palette knife here. Let me get some pure yellow. Let me just get some more yellow in here. Let me just think, where can I use this really nice warm yellow color? Maybe a tint in here. This really is cool though, but I'm going to add a bit there. There's some here. Like that, just where I'm feeling like I want to warm up some areas. This is definitely lilac in here. And let's go back in and start working with the rocks again. So I'm going to use my palette knife again. I think that part's good. That's dark enough. This can go lighter. So again, put some more white out right here. Nice pile of white, getting down to the end of this tube, but we'll put that out. And that's not a bad color family, but I think it could lean a little more into a green. Well, let's try this here. Kind of a greenish orange and lighter. Remember, I want to go lighter, but I want to add more of this yellow green to it. And sometimes when I'm mixing it, it's a lot of different colors. So I'll take a little dot and just isolate it and see, okay, no, definitely needs more yellow and a little bit more green. Now, sometimes that Viridian won't do it. So I'll take some of the phthalo and watch how green it will get with the phthalo. It's just a richer, more vibrant type of green. But anyway, I just want to see how far can I go right here with that. Yeah, that feels good. That I like. So if I like it, I'll just kind of push it around a little bit like that. Maybe catch the edge of it here. And over here too, I think it can get lighter. Going back into this, try to just think about where the light is coming from. Like that. Okay. Gets darker up in there. And also right here, I see this is lighter, where that's starting to come back this way. How light can I go there? Maybe try one more jump. Let's just see. With just more yellow. Let's just see how far can I push that yellow light. Right here. There we go. A little bit lighter. This is coming over that way and back. All right. See a little bit of it here. Now, okay, I'm going to restate the dark of the rock too. So I'm going to go into my transparent oxide red, my Viridian again, mix those together. Let's just see. Not green enough. So let me take some turquoise and mix in with some phthalo. And I'm just looking for like a nice seaweed sort of green color, but darker than what I have. So let's take this. Again, you should be able to just mix a general color. Let's isolate it again. Yeah, that's not bad. It's kind of a muddy green. I think it can be a little bit warmer, but I want to just fix the edge of that rock. How do I go warmer? Take some more yellow and mix it right into it. And that's going to get real warm real fast. Okay, so let's see here, because I do feel as though right in here, it's definitely warmer because it's facing up towards the sky. So you can see I go from these big flat puzzle pieces, two-dimensional puzzle pieces, and then the more I keep adding these little bits of detail here and there, edges, and making the edges seem more realistic, the more three-dimensional it will be. And I can just grab a little of the brown. I think down at the base here, it could be more brownish. Oh, like that a lot. Yes. It's definitely warming up down in here, and darker too, because the light cannot get in there. And the type of rock that it is probably gets very warm right there. Okay, so that feels good. Here's an edge that's not making any sense at all. I'm going to go darker and give it a nice edge, a nice rocky edge right there, like that, up. And, basically, I'm kind of carving or sculpting with paint when you're using this. All right, so now we have an issue where these two values right here are very close together. And I really want those rocks to pop and come forward. So that's telling me I have to go lighter there. I'm going to go in with that big square brush again. Let's see. All right, squinting down. Let's see. I'm going to grab a little medium. It's in this family right here, but it's lighter. Lighter and more like this. That's lighter for sure. Maybe a little warmer. Okay, so what I'm looking for right here along this edge, what happens if I go lighter right there? At least on this side. What will happen? Let's lighten this up here. Right in here like that. Okay, now I have more contrast between the two, and I like that. I see a little lilac, a lighter sort of lilac right in here. So I'm grabbing that King's Blue and, any place that I'm trying to emphasize an edge. Oh, that's a good color. I'm going to push some of that right into it like that. Maybe some of the pure King's Blue. Sometimes you want to just have a beautiful color right in there. So here I'm going to get more lilac like that. Let some of the darker color show through, but that looks good to me. Pushing it again into the phthalo, right in here, just along that edge right there. It's getting there. A little darker here with some green maybe along here, because I'm trying to emphasize that this is flat and that's going up. I'm going to do this too. I think I'll start to soften some of these. And then it gets very light right there. So I'm going to go back over to my lighter green color here. Right here, lots of white. I might as well go thick too. Let's go a little thicker. And pull it down this way like that. Oh yeah, that works good. So sometimes if your painting's getting a little too detailed and overworked, because you use the little brush too much, just get out the big brush again and start to lose some things, lose some areas where you can. Like here, I like this sort of muddy green that's going on right in here. It's like a real sea green. I like that. So, again, I'm emphasizing that contrast between the two edges, which I like. I'm going to wipe this brush because it's getting a little bit dirty. And go back in again with some nice clean color. And let's see, where else can I go? Let's soften some of this down here. Where else can I move water through this painting? How about, this is definitely lighter here. Right in here like that, grabbing some more. And, you might have some little, look at these. Now, I didn't put those rocks in, and that's the reason why the waves, but, it could just be that some of these waves are just catching some. I like the top part of a wave, the crest of the wave, to have a nice crisp edge, white edge like that. At least here, right up in here too, that can go, trying to lead the eye through at this point. So I think this is okay I'm going to leave it where it's at right now. I'll take a photo before I go in and do any more finishing details, but at least we'll get this far. And then if we have to, I'll put more details. I really love this purple. I don't want to cover that because I do like it. So I'm going to leave it for now and end the video and say goodbye to whoever is still here. And we'll see what happens. It's a little experimental, but I'm going to say goodbye to everybody and have a great day.
Thank you, Ellie.
All right, take care.
Take care.